Morning, everyone. We're going to give it a couple minutes and let people join, and then we'll begin our conversation today with Metro Transit. Good morning. On behalf of Citizens for Modern Transit, we'd like to welcome you to our conversation today with Metro Transit. Today, we're going to be discussing the upcoming service changes set for June 12th and other questions that we are hearing from riders in the St. Louis region. Thank you to all the CMT board members who have joined us this morning. I'd also like to quickly thank our sponsors who these events would not be possible without their support. AARP in St. Louis, Bi-State Development, the City of Belleville, Realtor Association of Southwestern Illinois, the St. Clair County Transit District, Washington University in St. Louis, BJC Healthcare, Gonzalez Companies, Greater St. Louis Inc., H&TB, Missouri and Kansas Laborers District Council, and ULICO. We would not be able to provide these updates without their support, so thank you. Thank you again to all of you who have joined us for this really critical conversation in the St. Louis region. On the heels of Metro Transit announcing schedule and routing adjustments to 41 Metro bus routes in Missouri and Illinois as part of their quarterly service change, we wanted to provide a platform for an overview of the changes which will be effective beginning this Monday, June 12th, as well as serve as an opportunity for riders, residents, and stakeholders in the community to ask their questions. Our discussion today will feature Charles Stewart, Chief Operating Officer of Metro Transit, Trinice Winters, the Assistant Executive Director of Metro Transit, and Jessica Gershman, the Assistant Executive Director of Planning and Systems at Metro Transit. Welcome to all of you. We are in the midst of a nationwide transit operator shortage that is plaguing cities across the country, and St. Louis is no exception. As Metro Transit prepares to implement another round of service adjustments, we wanted to provide a forum for riders and the general public to find out answers to their questions about the current service changes and any future plans. As the regional transit organization, we felt it was really important to have a transparent conversation on where we are and what the future looks like for bus service in the region, the how, the why, and where do we go from here. We have received numerous questions from riders over the last several days, but if anyone on today's call has a question, please feel free to add it to either the chat box in the Q&A. Our goal is to get to as many questions as possible this afternoon. If we don't get to your question, we promise we will try and get an answer and post those on our website as well with the recording of this event. Let's start now by giving Chuck, Trinice, and Jessica the opportunity to provide an overview of the service changes that are coming on June 12th, and then we will turn to the questions and answers. So welcome, Metro team, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Kim. I'm here today, Chuck Stewart, Executive VP and Chief Operating Officer, Metro Transit. I'm here with Trinice Winters and Jessica Gershman. Trinice is over our transit operations. She is responsible for our Metrobus, Metrolink, Call-A-Ride, and associated training services for those operations. Jessica is over planning and systems and is a key person in terms of our scheduling and any other long and short-term planning that we do. So they will both have information they'd like to share as you ask us questions going forward. I'd kind of like to set the background. We do a service change every quarter. So there's nothing different about us having a service change at this time. This particular service change is a minor adjustment to the last significant change we had in November. This accounts for about a 5% reduction in service, and there's a listing of routes that have been impacted by this. We had a service change in March. That March service change basically made changes to our Illinois routes, increasing routes in Illinois to meet the demand over there. But again, our service changes are about balance. They're about providing the best possible service to our customers. It's about balancing our resources with our customer demands. Over the past couple of years, we've experienced quite a few challenges, or we've experienced at least two significant challenges. One of those has been ridership loss due to COVID. Last year, fiscal year 22, we had 18 million riders on our system. You go back to fiscal year 17, there were close to 41 million riders. So we've shown significant loss in ridership over this time. At the same time, we have had a significant loss in operators. And so our challenge these days is matching up the service demands of our customers and our ability, our resources that we have available to service those customers. Right now, we are looking for around 200 bus operators, 12 Metrolink operators, and over 80 caller ride operators, but things are improving. And as we go forward in this conversation, I hope there will be questions that generate answers that will show how things are improving, and our expectation that service will stabilize and improve over the next few months. So with that, I'd like to just open it up for questions.
You caught me off guard, Chuck. I wasn't, couldn't find my microphone. Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you very much for laying the groundwork for us, Chuck. So let's jump right in with some of the questions we have received prior to this event, and then we will get some of these questions that we have in the chat box as well as the Q&A. To start with, how did the wages and benefits of Metro Transit operators compare to peer transit agencies across the country, including KCATA in Kansas City? We know that KCATA is at a full complement of operators. What is your operator wage base look like in comparison to other agencies across the country? What is the hourly rate?
Well, all agencies, all transit operations are not created equal. There are environmental things that impact the wages that need to be paid. We have an excellent benefit package. You know, we are currently in negotiations with Local 788 of the ATU. So I can't really talk in detail about those negotiations or the things we are proposing, the specific things. But, you know, we have a number of objectives. One of those is to attract and retain employees and improve their employment experience. I think we have a very fair overall wage and benefit structure. We're trying to improve work-life balance. Our basic objective in these negotiations is to keep employees, attract new employees, get employees to come to work, make sure that they are incentivized to do the work that we need done. So as a result of that, we've offered all kinds of incentives and differentials, shift differentials, night differentials, weekends, priority routes, longevity. We have the rate information for all U.S. properties in terms of what their current contracts are paying. We compare very favorably to those organizations that are kind of in our peer group. But again, not all operations are created equal. We looked at Kansas City, for example, and their top rate for an operator is currently $30.62. With the 5% increase that our operators got this year, and we're negotiating a 3-year contract. That will be the first year. We're currently at about 2841, but we have offered many incentives and differentials that could get that up considerably higher. Again, based on operators helping us to service the customers in the way that we need to service them. For example, in the first year with the various incentives that we've offered, and I can't read my own paper here, the rate would be up to like 30.55, which compares very favorably to the KC rate of 30.62.
Thank you, Chuck. So a piggyback on that, a question came in. So what are the barriers to getting operators, recruiting and retaining operators? What do you view are the top two barriers that you're facing right now as an agency?
Well, I think the barrier is the availability of operators and the competition for similar type jobs that we have in the area. And in addition to that, just the economic status of our region. Our region is not growing. Our region has its own issues. We're competing with other employers that need employees with a CDL, for example. So our population is aging. All of those things are impacting the availability of workers in this area. But we have implemented a number of things in order to attract and keep people at Metro. And I'd like to Trinice to kind of go over a few of those things for you.
Good morning. Good morning. Our Metro management team, in partnership with talent acquisition and marketing and communications teams, we've been focusing on recruiting bus, van, light rail operators, as well as maintenance and electrician positions. These efforts have netted probably about 90% increase in our applications in the applicant tracking system. Some of the recruiting efforts that we've done now for over a year, we have held monthly hiring events at our facilities, which takes a person or applicant through the entire life cycle of a hiring process in one day. You not only apply, you're interviewed, you have your DOT test as DOT physical as well as drug tests, and you will receive a contingency offer if you're successful at that one hiring event. In the past 2 months, we've had 3 hiring events. We've had well over 200 attendees. We've made 135 offers. We currently have 23 operators in the bus class and 8 in caller ride. We consider those full classes. And we're on target to have the next full bus and van class in June. We're having an event today for our former employees, and we have another hiring event this Saturday at North County Transit Center. So we're on the ground rolling as it relates to hiring.
Okay.
Another thing we're doing now, we have reduced the age of hiring new employees for van operators and some maintenance positions. Now you just have to be 18 years of age. Initially, it was 21. Earlier, I mentioned that we're hiring light rail operators. Until recent, light rail operators were hired from within. There were not offers for outside employment. But now we're hiring and training for anyone that's interested in being a light rail or Metrolink operator. Go ahead.
Sorry, Trinice, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
We're also forming partnerships with agencies and groups within the international community for candidates. Now, this is the only population growing in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and we've hired our first team member as a bus operator by partnering with the International Institute. And this community group will also support this individual during our training. So those are the hiring initiatives that we've done. As it relates to retention, we've had a complete overhaul of our training department, our processes within training, and our training curriculum. 3 months ago, we introduced a new mentorship program. in partnership with ATU International, where we have 19 bus, van, and light rail operators mentoring new employees. These mentors meet regularly and support the new employees from the training all the way through their first year of employment. And the last thing we're doing as it relates to this is we're formalizing a reserve manager program where we train the next group of managers for Metro. We're focusing on developing and transitioning them from peer to manager. And only our current represented team members may apply for these positions. So we're laser focused on recruitment, hiring, and more importantly, training and mentoring our new employees.
Thank you. So quick question, what percentage of the people that are offered a driver job actually accept the offer?
Well, I want to say the percentage that's offered a job make it through the process, right? So we make an offer. Until recent, it was probably in the 40% range from being offered the job and you making it through the entire process and enter training. In the last 2 months, I will say that percentage has increased to about 75% from offer to class, right? And we have a challenge. We are challenging ourselves to get them from a new employee from interview to class in 30 days. That's our challenge for ourselves.
Okay. So talking a little bit, we've had a lot of questions about operator shortages and number of operators you have. And Chuck, you touched on it a little. You're short 200 Metro Bus, 80 Call-A-Ride, and 12 Metrolink operators. What do these numbers look like compared to pre-pandemic? Were the requirements for your operator base larger pre-pandemic because of the increased ridership? So where are you in comparison to pre-pandemic numbers with regards to your operator base?
So our budget for operators has not really changed over this period of time. We are currently budgeted for about 800 operators, 102 Metrolink, and 201 Call-A-Ride positions. So those shortages are based on that. But what we do is based on what we have on available. That is what we use in order to determine the service that we can provide.
Okay, great. So let's pivot a little bit and move from the operator conversation to the actual service changes. So what are the data points that Metro is using to inform the adjustments to the schedule and the frequency changes? You know, we talked about that there were 41 Metro bus routes that were tweaked for this coming Monday. So what are the data points that help you make those decisions?
Okay, well, Jessica, that's Jessica's areas of expertise, and I'm going to let her kind of run you through the process that we use in determining that.
Perfect, thank you.
So there are multiple avenues, including qualitative and quantitative. As Chuck said, you know, we pack a lot in at a quarterly service change cadence. We accept feedback constantly, but it's coming in from our riders and from our operators. So the second there maybe is a new service package on the street, we are hearing about if there are times that have been tweaked, if there are connections that need to be adjusted. That's a really valuable, important data input as well. We are using a lot of our technical systems, of course, and tracking ridership. So we are using sensors on our vehicles to get a sense of how many folks are riding at different times of day. We have it broken down by route and by hour and by day type. And so we are really precise sense of, wow, this route really goes gangbusters at 6 a.m., but after 6 p.m., you really see a drop off. And that's because of the areas that it serves, the people that it connects to, and different, destinations where it's headed. So those are two, very key inputs that help inform these kinds of changes. The quarterly service change normally gives us a chance to make those adjustments in these times where we are dealing with workforce shortages. It helps us because those are what are informing these very difficult decisions that we have to make. So from gathering that data from research department and from our customer service, that feeds into a constant quarterly loop. It goes right into our service planning team's decision making about the level of service we can provide. That goes to our scheduling department that then blocks it all out and figures out a viable schedule with a real eye toward bus and train connections. It's really important for our hub and spoke network. And then, we put it on the street and we tell people about it, and then we start the thing all over again. So that's the sort of normal quarterly cadence. But in terms of, I would just reemphasize that the customer rider input is paramount to how we make these choices. We want to make service that is the best we can do for the people that need it. And so that is, a big input for us.
So talking about that customer feedback and input, what is the process for Metro to collect that feedback from riders and the riders in the wider community? I think I need some caffeine, and the wider community regarding the impacts of those service changes. So how can people give you feedback?
Sure. So there's contacting us through our customer service department. There is talking with employees out in the field, whether it be, field managers on Trinice's team or operators on the vehicles that you were riding. There's reaching out to all the other various avenues of staff, like my team in the planning department, to let us know what you're hearing, what you're thinking, how it's working for you. A lot of times this is at an individual level. And sometimes we hear from an employer that says, look, I've got these 8 people and this is what they need. So, we hear from groups and individuals. That's one way. We also, we are a receiver of information. We also we push it out as well, of course, because of sort of the technical way that we can update our data feeds. We put out information describing the service change as far in advance as possible. We try to do it at least 1 month in advance. For example, the June 12th, we had a couple opportunities with other public meetings that we were holding for broader Metro projects and initiatives where we were able to have staff there to answer these kinds of questions. So it's both a reactive and a proactive approach. We've made shifts in our engagement strategy to try to make sure we are taking every opportunity to meet people where they are and be available to answer questions about not only long range plans, but what is happening today presently on the ground.
Okay. And historically, Metro used to do rider surveys. Is there any plan or for a survey of riders to determine their needs and satisfaction level with regards to the service changes and investments in the near future?
Yes. So, a lot of that's been placed on temporary hold due to the pandemic, but we've been making the plans to both start up a next onboard survey, which Kim would be a way of collecting information about the fares that people use to pay and ride, as well as origin and destination, like where you're going, when do you like to ride, all that kind of detailed rider information. That's one set of data that we are currently getting organized to put a survey out in that capacity. In addition, when it comes to planning for the next sort of type of service, many folks on this webinar might remember our Metro Reimagine process and the Transit Vision 2020 process for St. Clair County Transit District. Typically, a transit agency every 5 or 10 years sort of steps back and re-examines their operations comprehensively. And so we are coming up on that period. This is a good time to do it as we emerge from pandemic and we have all of these robust plans for training, recruitment, and retention. So people can stay tuned for more of that seeking feedback about the service that they're looking for. And that'll be across all of the modes that we provide.
So speaking of ridership and feedback and looking at changes to fixed route service in the future, there's been a lot of questions about why is ridership higher on the Illinois side as compared to Missouri percentage-wise? When we're looking at ridership numbers, why is it growing at a higher percentage in Illinois than in Missouri? Now, obviously, this is just going to be your thoughts or your theories, but I think that there have been several questions in the chat already and previously sent in about what is the difference between service in Illinois versus service in Missouri?
Well, service provided in Illinois is in partnership with St. Clair County Transit District and our good friend Ken Sharkey. And Ken could probably answer that question better than I, but first of all, Illinois is like 1/10 of the ridership that we have in our system. So it's a much smaller operation over there, but there seems to be demand that is coming back in Illinois faster than what we're experiencing in Missouri. Again, you have to remember that we're down ridership overall still, but they are recovering faster. The demand in certain areas is increasing. Again, our service change in March was designed primarily to meet the demand over there, considering the resources that we have. Don't know what the magic bullet is over there other than there are certain ridership needs that we're not showing so far in Missouri in terms of our recovery.
So how will these service changes on Monday impact Call a Ride service?
Okay, well, Call a Ride again is a complementary service to our fixed route service. What we did back in April is we resized Call a Ride to fit in the polygon of providing service within 3/4 mile of our fixed routes, being bus and light rail. So this service the change we're implementing in June did not really change that polygon. So the service areas for Call a Ride will remain the same. There are certain areas where we may have changed the timing of our service. The timing of Call a Ride service will also coordinate with the timing of our fixed route service. So there'll be very little change to Call a Ride as a result of this. But as we move forward, again, we're going to make the corresponding changes to Call a Ride that we make to our fixed route service at each service change.
Okay. So there's been several questions about going back to the feedback and providing comments about service. Will you be returning to in-person events instead of online with regards to service, with regards to comments about service and feedback from riders?
Sure. I mean, and we already have in many ways. Again, the public meetings that I just referenced were designed around the 15% design study for North Side South Side Metrolink extension. But we often do sort of encounter surveys. So we are meeting people again where they are. So we'll go to the North Handley Transit Center, for instance, and have that short conversation, catch someone while they're making their transfer between their train and their bus, and try to have that conversation or ask them to fill out a short survey. So I hear you. There's, I think, some merits to the online and virtual forum, but we are, I think, in favor of doing both. So any future bigger service adjustments that we are, that warrant that like broader engagement, will certainly have in-person opportunities. And it's great to see in the chat that people are interested in that.
And so as those come about, Jessica, where's the best area for people to go and look for that information? Is it your website or will it be on your social media platforms? That was one of the questions that came up. How do people get that information easily?
Sure. Yeah. So www.metrostlewis.org. We will always have, that blog post or that rider alert notification that describes the where and the what. And then that would accordingly get pushed out through socials and probably through CMT as well. So stay tuned to your network too, I'd say. But yeah,
Okay.
Website's best.
Great. Thank you. So looking to the future, as you know, the goal here is to increase your operator base, correct? You want to bring back that full complement of operators. So how will the agency determine changes to route schedules and frequencies as you increase your operator team, your operator base? When will we right the ship and start to look at increasing frequencies versus tweaks in the opposite direction? And how will those be determined? What will that be based on?
Well, it will certainly be based on the availability of that operator resource.
Right.
What we
Right.
see in the future right now, maybe the next, I think we're at a point, given our recent success in terms of recruiting and getting people into class and training them and getting them out on the bus or the train or the caller ride van. If that continues, I think we're at a point where we can stabilize the operation. We can have no further decreases in service, modifications of that type. And I think probably we're looking at the next 3 to 6 months. And as far as that's concerned, this stabilization process, I think if that continues again, as our resources continue to become available, probably in the next, that 6 months to 1 year, we can start thinking about frequency and span of service. And as we go beyond that, I think we're talking about really what Jessica was mentioning, that really in-depth look at our service potential, what we should be providing, how we should be providing it, and adjusting services to meet the demand in the community. Another thing to consider is that our demand may have changed as a result of COVID. We may not see some of the same riders that we've seen in the past with the same kinds of needs that they've had in the past. So we need to assess that as well and provide the right service for the community as we move forward.
Okay, great. So this question goes to a little bit of looking into the future, Chuck, and I know you can't look into your crystal ball, but what message do you want to send to the public, and what can riders and potential riders look forward to in the short term of 3 to 6 months and longer term, 6 months to a year and beyond?
Okay, so I think I just kind of covered that part.
You did a little bit, but I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
The message is, you know, I think we're looking Bi-State Metro as an agency. I think we're looking at what happened to us during the pandemic as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to rethink the future of Metro Transit, rethink what the community needs us to provide, and prepare for that future. We've got a lot of things in process. We continue to invest in our bus system, of course, and we're buying new LRVs. We're considering expansion of our light rail operations. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration as we take this opportunity to reset and move forward.
Okay, great. So Jessica, I think this question probably goes to you. You know, there's been a lot of conversation about how COVID has impacted the demand for transit, and we did see that. We saw a significant number of people sheltering in place for a long period of time and working from home. So we've talked about COVID, but as a planner, do you think that these cuts to service or tweaks to service or reduction in frequency could also be impacting the actual demand for service and ridership on the system? And what are your thoughts on that from the planning perspective?
Sure. So the cycle of, if you are not providing reliable service, then a person will find another way, because humans are resourceful, right? And yeah, that is why reliability has been what we've been doing our darndest to focus on over these last, 18 plus months. But I'd say that's why, Chuck has tasked us with looking forward and looking out a couple years to really say, all right, we have been trying to keep our heads above water, but let's take a step back. Let's do a density analysis. Let's look at what the trends are saying in the future and what is on the ground now. And service in the future might look different than it does today. And that's okay. It needs to match, where the demands are and where they're projected to be. But we're in the beginning stages of that process here at Metro now to sort of get out of that cycle that you're alluding to, Kim, where we are not damaging our, ridership numbers, or not providing a service that's reliable enough that folks can feel that they can take it. And so through rebuilding, looking at how those travel patterns have changed, maybe people are going different places in higher numbers and not going to the same places they used to. You see some trends about downtown, for instance. And then making sure we're talking to folks, making sure we are hearing from communities and daily riders and occasional riders, and pulling all those inputs together to build a multimodal system, rebuild a multimodal system that serves people best. That is the way to kind of break that sort of cycle that folks are talking about, it looks like in the chat. So certainly I understand the question, and I think there's a path forward and around it, and we're working on it.
Okay. So we did have a question come in. How will the June 12th service changes impact riders being able to get to the local area hospitals and healthcare?
Specifically, the changes for June 12th in our effort to impact the fewest number of riders are mostly occurring in the evenings and on weekends. That is when, we see our lowest ridership numbers. Coincidentally, that's also when we have the hardest time filling shifts with our employees. So in terms of hospital coverage, I'm just racking my brain to think about if there is anywhere that will lose some weekend coverage, but for the most part, there is, an alternative mode that would be available. So if there's a specific location, we can certainly do, some follow-up to try to make sure we help that person connect to where they're going. But in general, definitely hospitals and healthcare facilities, along with educational institutions and major employment centers, are top of where we're trying to serve. Those are like the destinations that we want to make sure we have access to still.
Great. So talk a little bit about, though, if you're in an area that's impacted by the service frequency changes, or you have long wait times, who is Metro partnering with, and what do those micro transit options look like to help fill some of those service gap areas?
Well, we're partnering primarily with VIA in North, West, and South County. And we also supplementing that service with Lyft. Lyft is kind of a last resource kind of thing. Nobody gets left behind. If all else fails, we will supplement with Lyft. But we are looking at our relationships with these supplemental providers. At some point, we may even be able to expand our Call-A-Ride just beyond our ADA required customers, that type of thing. So whenever we make a service change, we look at who's impacted. We get, our drivers tell us, well, if you do that, then certain customers over here will be impacted. And we're always weighing the challenge of impacting 3 people over here to help 35 people over here. So we need people to communicate with us, let us know of specific impacts that they're having, and through our customer service and planning and operations teams, we're going to try to find a solution to that situation.
Okay, great. So, there's a lot of conversation right now about the recent air quality warnings, and we have a question. It seems that with the recent air quality warnings, that reduced service will expose riders waiting for now less frequent buses to particulates in the air. How will we address the reduced service given the context of these warnings?
That one I'm not sure I've considered. Okay. I'm not sure what we can do in that particular case. If there are riders, again, that feel specifically impacted by that, then they should reach out to us and we will see what we can do to accommodate that situation.
Thanks, Chuck. So by the time of your next quarterly adjustment, do you anticipate another decrease in service? Again, we're asking you to look into your crystal balls. Can you forecast a timeline for resumption of some of the service that has been cut?
I can't. I don't have a crystal ball. I can tell you that standing here today or sitting here today, all of us have no desire to make further reductions in service. None whatsoever. We never would want to have to reduce service. Our job is to provide the service that our region needs. But considering, I think the success we're having right now as it relates to attracting and getting people trained up and ready to go to work, I would think that at the next service change, we would hopefully not be talking about reduction, but start talking about stability again.
So there's another question that came in prior to the event, and I'm hoping you can answer it, but it might actually go to your marketing and communications. But what are the plans for the agency to promote public transit to the general public and challenge the stereotypes held about transit?
Well, actually, my marketing and communications people prepared me for that question. I asked them to be present, but they said you can handle it. So I think we're doing that already. I think we are looking at our community. There are already messages that are going out through print and radio and billboard, all kinds of social media that are basically saying that, you know, first of all, transit isn't for everyone. Okay, transit is for a certain segment of our population, so we need to be clear about that. The other thing is that, you know, Bi-State Bus is going into its 60th year, and we've spent the last few months creating messages to celebrate that and the importance of transit to the region to get past these stereotypes. Transit, metro bus is important to you whether you ride it or not. That's the message that we're trying to get out there. There's a lot more that's riding on Metro Transit than people. It's jobs, it's opportunities, it's economic development, it's small businesses, it's corporations. There's a lot riding on our transit system, and that's the message that we'd like people to understand going forward, is that it's not just transit for individuals, it's about a benefit to the entire region. So that's the message that we're trying to send right now.
Right, and so transit really is for everyone, whether they ride it or not.
Whether they ride it or not.
Okay, just want to clarify that, because for a second there, I think we heard something different. So, okay. So going back to ridership, there's been lots of questions. And so could you guys talk a little bit about your own experience riding transit? You know, from many riders' perspectives, you don't know the system unless you're on the system. So what is your experience riding transit? What routes do you use? How is that impacting the decisions you're making on Metro's leadership team?
Well, I think Trinice is going to give us more detail on what we're doing as a team overall. From a personal standpoint, I ride Metrolink. I ride the Blue Line, you know, into work and back frequently. So I have that experience and the experience along the way at the various stops and the various transit centers that are incorporated there. We've done an executive rider program, ride-along program, where members of our executive teams have all volunteered to ride certain routes throughout the system to make sure we understand what's going on there. We did it primarily during COVID in order to support our operators, to let them know that we were there and that we were trying to understand what they deal with on a day-to-day basis so that we can better make decisions about the future of the transit system. Trinice is doing some things with her team that I think are very, very important going forward.
So like Chuck, I write the system as well. I write all routes. So there's not one that I can point to, but I write all of them. We go out as a management team for bus, light rail, and caller ride. Each manager is required to ride the system, some daily and some several times a week, depending on the nature of their job. But we're out there looking for connections. We're looking at bus stops. We're looking at the routes to make sure the routes make sense. We're looking at the behaviors of our operators and passengers. We're looking at things that we need to tweak in the system if necessary. And we're having very important conversations with our customers and our riders and our operators while we're out there. You may also find some of our management staff actually drive. They will go out and drive and give the operator a break. So those are things we're doing because we know it is important for us to have a clear understanding of what our customer goes through daily and what our operators go through daily.
Great. So there's been several questions, about the investment in the buses with the new fleet that we're going to be getting in St. Louis, the electric vehicle fleet, the investment in SPP, the secure platform plan. There's lots of questions about why are we not investing more in operators? And because there's so many questions, Chuck, I'd like you to clarify that a little bit. There's lots of questions about why are we not giving in a huge amount of raise to operators in order to entice them to the system. But I want to go back to this just because there's so many questions that are showing up and that we have. If you want to touch on that a little bit more, Chuck, that, I think that you even said it's not all the operator wages, it's the availability of possible candidates to be operators.
Absolutely. We are trying to attract and retain. We think that we are paying, and we are offering a fair wage and a great benefits package. We are looking for ways to improve that as we move forward. As you mentioned, we are investing in our service overall through the investments we're making in the bus fleet, electrification, all of those things. Those things are all future oriented. Those are all capital kind of situations. Operator wages are operating budget line item. We have to make sure that we consider wage increases in the light of sustainability. Can we sustain this wage over the long run? So we need in our contracting relationships with the union, we need flexibility again to do some of the operational changes that we are planning for the future. So that's all combined. We're not opposed to paying our operators the wages that they deserve. They make relatively good salaries for this region, and they are due every penny of it. They are due every penny of it. We appreciate the work that they do for us, and we are trying to make an agreement with the union so that we can continue that partnership with the union and help us through this transition to be the agency we need to be 3, 5, 7, 9, 12 years from now. So we have to take all of those things into consideration in that process.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit, there's some comments about a decrease in frequency on some routes and the wait times and headways. some riders want to know about, okay, you've decreased frequency on my route, but can we look at the amenities at the bus stops, benches or shelters or signage? Can any of that be addressed now, even while, we're looking at frequencies and we're tweaking service, so that if you have to wait an additional 10 minutes or 15 minutes, that you have a bench or you have shelter? What does that plan look like with regards to amenities at bus stops and stations and transit centers?
Sure, I can address that. I mean, so the flip side of the operations funding is that with capital projects like that, we can go seek out competitive federal grants for projects like that, and we do. So we currently have about 120 stops that we're waiting for FTA, Federal Transit Administration review of those locations in order to make ADA improvements at those stations. So amenities wise, we're at a place where typically a shelter or a bench is put in based on like user level. So the ridership typically that we see at that stop. And there's a number of other factors, but we have a new process where we've looked at demographic, socioeconomic, ridership, and sort of other kind of geographic and condition factors for stops, and are reevaluating where to start from, so that there's good regional distribution of those investments. But we are able to, we're in that process of like starting from at least making stops more ADA accessible, and then evaluating if it warrants further amenities. So typically, a good way, if you are somebody that is interested in different amenities at your stop, is to get in touch with us through the customer service department, and they filter that request or that inquiry appropriately. I would also then highlight, Kim, our community mobility hubs program, where we are trying to make more on-street investment at the intersection of major bus stops. The tricky thing about Metro is that we operate service over roads and on next to sidewalks that we don't actually own. So everything that we do in terms of those kinds of investments is in partnership with those roadway owners in the local jurisdictions. But we do have strong partnerships, and we are constantly exploring, seeking out more money for making those bus improvements. And there's a lot of I would say the planning team has a lot going on in that space right now.
So when we're talking about that space, we have another individual who wants to know if you're seeking out any capital funding to look at improvements, such as to improve headways and frequencies through signal prioritization and bus lanes for congested intersections. Is there any planning in that area, Jessica?
So signal priority would be something that is looked at through larger capital projects. And so we don't have any lines that we're looking at TSP specifically right now, but yes, we do. We are like analyzing that as a team and thinking about where there might be appropriate intersections to pilot it. So that would be seeking specific capital funds to give a sort of pilot program like that a trial. But we know that cities like Boston, there's a lot of places that have been able to prioritize that kind of bus priority lanes, and a lot of that is achieved through better signalization. So we definitely keep an eye on peers and are interested in moving in that direction in specific areas. There's routes like the 70 that could be a good opportunity for testing.
So we have a question come in, as the wait time, as the frequency is potentially reduced right now because of the operator shortage, and you have disabled riders who may not be eligible anymore for Call a Rider in that service area, and we're working to move them to the buses. What other services are available, because their options are limited right now?
So we're addressing that. First of all, Call a Ride and the service we provide is not, it's not intended to be, nor can it be the solution for the whole region.
Mm-hmm.
So we are working with the regional transit disabilities network in order to come up with solution for those riders, those customers that have fallen outside of our call a ride service areas. So again, that's something we are trying to do the best we can with the resources we have. But we are also trying to take a leadership role with the region in order to resolve those issues on a broader range.
Okay, great. So as we get close to the 1 o'clock hour, I want to make sure I ask this question while we wait to see if any other questions pop up today. But what is the final takeaway from each of you with regards to the upcoming service changes on June 12th, or what riders should be expecting in the future, or what your goals are for the system? I know those are 3 loaded questions, so you can pick one or you can answer all 3, but I want to make sure that what your last comments are takeaways that, you know, if people have additional comments, they can send those to our info email and we'll get those to you. But I think it's really important that we hear from you on what in your mind is the future.
It was hard for me to remember 3 questions at the same time, but I'll start with one that I do remember.
Okay, thanks.
As far as June 12th is concerned, it's just a step along the way. It's a process, okay? It's where we need to be right now, again, based on the resources that we have of it available. Our commitment is providing the best possible service that we can to the region. June 12th hopefully improves service for a lot of people. I'm sure it has some negative impact on some, but again, it's something we need to do to move forward. The other thing, as far as the future is concerned, I think we have things in place. We have processes in place. We have programs in place. We have initiatives in place that are going to help us resolve our internal issues in terms of primarily the availability of operators to provide service. So I think as we move forward, you're going to see enhancements to our service, improvement on our reliability, more sustainable type of service. And as we go beyond that further and we continue to improve our resource availability, we're going to see dramatic changes to what Metro looks like in the future. You put that together, and we're primarily talking about bus operations here. You put bus operations to our plans as it relates to light rail and call a ride. Metro's going to look a lot different in the very near future, and hopefully that will lead to better customer service and a better overall service to our region in assisting it in its economic development.
Thank you, Chuck. Trinice, Jessica?
I think Chuck said a lot. For me, from operations, our goal every day when we send a bus out of the garage or put a train on a track is to provide a reliable service to our customers. And for me, June 12th is providing a more reliable service to our customer. We don't want to leave anyone stranded. We want to provide options if they are necessary, but we want to put the best service we can out on the street to our customers.
Great, thank you. Trinice, Jessica?
I would just add that we understand that, you know, things have been frustrating and that we really are driven by that reliability and accessibility goal. And so to that end, when you look in that midterm future, we're focused on a lot of those principles that were around the last time we did a comprehensive operations analysis, where we're balancing frequency and coverage. We are wanting to make sure we're serving the most possible people with the accessibility that they need. And so that means focusing on our strong core network. We are, after all, in the mass transportation business, right? So there's a lot of new transportation technologies out there that can complement a strong fixed network, but that's what we're focused on is, you know, reliable accessibility, frequency where it is needed, and that coverage to help extend that network. I think that's kind of the solid image that you can walk away with in terms of where we're headed from the planning perspective.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. I did also want to mention that, if there is a missed bus, Citizens for Modern Transit does offer that guaranteed ride home program, which is a security blanket for those who are taking the bus or train or call a ride. It is a subsidized cab rides or rental cars home in case of emergencies. It's a complimentary program for people who take the bus or train or transit or walk or bike to work. And there's information available on our website at cmt-stl.org as well. So it's just one more little incentive as we get through this process. But I did want to thank our panelists today for their candid conversation about the service changes, about the operator shortages, and what Metro is doing to help move us past that and where we're at today. So thank you to all three of you for joining us this morning. I really appreciate your time and the messaging that you've provided. And thank you to everyone else who's joined us for this discussion this morning. A recording of today's panel will be posted on our YouTube channel later this afternoon in case you want to share it with other riders who may not have been able to join us or other stakeholders. And we know that these efforts will continue to be ongoing. We heard a lot about that. We talked about the future of public transit. So please check back regularly to our website. And we look forward to hearing from you. And if there's any other questions that you may have that didn't get answered today, feel free to share them at info@cmt-stl.org, and we will try and get those answered for you and the answers posted on our website. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Um,